Mom wants to defend my sister after stealing from me and wants to send me to military school. I'm 14 years old, and my younger sister Natalie has been stealing from me for as long as I can remember. I work hard doing odd jobs around the neighborhood, mowing lawns, collecting cans for the deposit, doing yard work for elderly neighbors. Over the past 2 years, I've managed to save about $2,000. Every single dollar is documented in a ledger I keep in my desk drawer. I know exactly how much I have, down to the penny. But my sister Natalie spends her allowance like it's water. Makeup, video games, clothes from the mall, she burns through money faster than anyone I've ever seen. And she never lifts a finger to earn it. My mother Linda never makes her do chores. My father Robert makes me earn my allowance through work, but Natalie gets hers handed to her for free. And when she runs out, she steals from me. Last week, she took $100 from my savings. And what happened next would start a war that would tear my family apart and involve Child Protective Services. Here's exactly how I fought back. Before I go any further, drop a comment right now and tell me where you're watching from. I want to know who's hearing this story. It was a Thursday afternoon when I discovered the theft. I'd come home from mowing 3 lawns in the neighborhood, my hands still stained green from trimming hedges. I went to my room to add my earnings to my savings stash, $1.45 I'd made that day. But when I counted the money in my hiding spot behind the loose baseboard, my stomach dropped. I pulled out my ledger and checked the numbers. 3 days ago, I'd recorded a balance of $1,400. Now I counted only $1,300. $100 was missing. I knew immediately who'd taken it. This wasn't the first time. It wasn't even the 5th time. Natalie had a habit of finding my hiding spots no matter how clever I thought I was being. But this time, I had proof. Actual, documented proof that would hold up to scrutiny. I found her in her room, playing a new video game I knew she couldn't have afforded with her allowance. She'd already blown through that week ago on makeup and clothes. "Hey Natalie," I said, keeping my voice calm. "Did you take my money again?" Her face went through this weird transformation I'd seen 100 times before. First, surprise. Then calculation. Then this fake innocence that might have worked on our mother but never worked on me. "What? No." She had this stutter in her voice that only showed up when she was lying. "You're a terrible liar," I said, stepping into her room. "There's $100 missing from my savings. And I keep a ledger of every dollar I add to it. 3 days ago, I had exactly $1,400. Now there's only $1,300. Her eyes went wide. She hadn't known about the ledger. Nobody did except my father. "Leave me alone." Her voice got high and whiny. "I didn't do it." And then, right on cue, she started that fake crying she always did. The kind that had no actual tears but made a lot of noise. Then she did what she always did, she ran. Her feet pounded down the hallway toward the kitchen. "Mommy," she wailed. "Mommy, brother is picking on me." I followed, but I wasn't running. I wasn't panicking. Because this time, things were going to be different. My mother was at the kitchen counter with a glass of white wine in her hand. It was barely 4 in the afternoon. She looked up as Natalie crashed into the kitchen, then her eyes fixed on me with that look I knew too well. That look that said I was about to be the problem, not Natalie. She snapped her fingers at me, that condescending gesture that made my blood boil every single time. "Shut up," she said, snapping her fingers again. "Can't you see Mama's little girl is upset? She said she didn't do it, so she didn't do it. And that's all there is to it. So if you don't let this go, I'll ground you." But I was ready for this. I'd been ready for this for weeks. "I know she did it," I said, pulling my ledger out from under my arm. "And if you don't get the money back, I'll get Dad's help." My mother's eyes narrowed. "Now there's no need for that. Besides, you don't have any proof she took your money." I opened the ledger and showed her the numbers, pointing to each entry. "Yes, I do. I keep a record of every single dollar I add to my savings. The total 3 days ago was $1,400. Now there's only $1,300. $100 is missing. And you know she's stolen from me several times already." I turned to look at Natalie, who'd stopped her fake crying to watch this unfold. "Plus, I know she already spent all of her allowance this month. Yet you took her shopping yesterday. Where did she get that money, huh?" My mother opened her mouth to respond, then closed it. I could see her thinking, trying to find a way out of the logic trap I'd just laid. She couldn't. Her face twisted into a scowl. "You know what? You are grounded. Go to your room right now, or I'm going to get the belt." I could have argued further. Part of me wanted to. But I'd learned something important in this house over the years. I knew when to stop talking and just call my father. So without another word to either of them, I turned around and walked to my room. I heard my mother yelling something behind me, but I ignored it. I closed my door and pulled out my little Nokia cell phone that I'd saved up to buy. I dialed my dad at work. It rang 4 times before going to voicemail. "Dad, it's me," I said after the beep. "Natalie stole $100 from my savings. I have proof in my ledger. Mom's threatening to ground me instead of making Natalie return it. Can you call me back?" I sat on my bed and waited. 45 minutes later, my phone buzzed. "I've sorted it out," Dad said when I answered. "Don't worry about being grounded. Just stay in your room for now." Not long after, I heard the landline house phone ringing. Then I heard my mother's voice rising in the kitchen. I couldn't make out most of the words through my closed door, but I caught fragments. "That little," and "you always take his side," and "she already spent it." The conversation ended with her yelling something about how if Natalie really took the money, then Dad could pay it back himself since Natalie had already spent it. Then I heard footsteps stomping up the stairs. Fast. Angry. My door flew open and my mother stood there, her face red, her wine glass still in her hand. "I can't believe you ratted me out, you little ingrate," she screamed. "After all I do for you, you couldn't just let a little money slide? So you admit that Natalie took it then," I said calmly. Her face got even redder. She sneered at me. "You know what? I don't care. Girls need more money than boys anyway. You should just be giving it to her. It wasn't even that much." "It wasn't just a little money and you know it," I said, standing up. I was already as tall as her at 14, and I'd been doing enough yard work that I was getting strong. She stole $100. And even if it was only $1, I'd still want it back. You wouldn't want someone stealing from your purse. It's no different if Natalie steals from me. She's guilty and you know it, and I want that money returned one way or another. I worked hard for it and she did nothing. My baby doesn't have to do anything, my mother shouted. She is a princess and deserves to be treated like one. That isn't my problem, I said. She can go be a princess away from me and away from my stuff. That's it, you little shit. My mother stepped toward me, raising her hand. I'm going to beat your ass. I stood up straighter and looked her eye to eye. We were the same height now. Go ahead and try it, I said quietly. I won't let you. Because I didn't do anything wrong. My mother froze in place. For a moment, we just stared at each other. I could see the shock in her eyes. She'd never had me stand up to her like this before. Then she let out this loud, frustrated scream and swung her arm wildly, trying to knock something off my dresser. But she swung too low and her hand connected hard with the solid wood dresser itself. The sound was loud. Like a crack. She grabbed her hand immediately, trying to hold in the pain. Her face contorted and she was grinding her teeth together, giving me this furious look. Then she just turned around and walked out, slamming my door so hard the frame shook. I could hear her making a ruckus in the hallway, yelling and smacking the wall as she went downstairs. I heard the sound of the refrigerator opening, the wine fridge in the kitchen. This was her usual pattern when she didn't get her way. She'd go get drunk. I sat back down on my bed, my heart pounding. I looked at my door and saw my little sister Natalie standing there, watching from her bedroom doorway across the hall. She looked horrified. Her mouth was hanging open. Then she saw me looking at her and fled back into her room, slamming her door. Good. She should be scared. Mom was her ace in the hole for getting away with stealing from me. And that was quickly changing. A few hours later, I heard the front door open. Dad was home from work. I heard his heavy footsteps coming up the stairs, then a knock on my door. Can I come in? Yeah. He opened the door, and Natalie was with him, looking at the floor. Your sister has something to say to you, Dad said. His voice was firm but not angry. This was his disappointed dad voice, which was somehow worse than when he yelled. Natalie refused to even look at me. She mumbled something so quiet I couldn't hear it. Speak up, Dad said. Sorry, she whispered, still looking at her feet. Louder. I'm sorry, she said, her voice cracking. Again. And look at your brother. I'm sorry, she practically yelled, finally looking at me with tears streaming down her face. Real tears this time, not the fake ones from earlier. Dad pulled out his wallet and handed me $100 bill. This makes up for what your sister took. She's grounded for a week, and the stolen money will come out of her allowance. Natalie started sobbing harder, calling Dad awful names before running off to her room. I looked at the $100 bill in my hand. Thanks, Dad. This has to stop, he said quietly. I'm going to do something about this. Give me a few days. A week later, on Dad's day off, he took me to a store downtown. We walked past aisles of tools and hardware until we got to the security section. He picked up a small combination safe, the kind you'd keep important documents or jewelry in. This should work, he said. When we got home, Mom and Natalie were out shopping. Dad helped me set up the safe in the back of my closet. Pick a code you'll remember but they won't guess, he said. I chose 4962. I put all my savings inside, $1, 400 in cash, plus the 100 Dad had just given me. The safe clicked shut with a satisfying sound. I spun the dial and tested it. Locked solid. Don't tell them about this, Dad said. Let's keep it between us. For a few weeks, everything was quiet. Too quiet. I went about my usual routine, school, then odd jobs after school, coming home with my earnings and adding them to my safe. I kept my ledger updated with every dollar. The balance grew, $1,600, then $1,700, then $1,800. Then one afternoon, I came home from mowing lawns to find my bedroom door wide open. That was my first clue something was wrong. I always closed it. I stepped inside and my stomach dropped. My room had been ransacked. Drawers pulled out and dumped on the floor. Clothes scattered everywhere. Books swept off my shelves. My closet doors hung open, everything inside pulled out and thrown around. Someone had torn through my room looking for something. I knew exactly what they'd been looking for. And I knew exactly who'd done it. I found my mother in the kitchen, that same glass of white wine in her hand. Mom, Natalie tore up my room. She barely looked at me. My baby didn't do this. Well, did you do it then? No. Well, it could only have been one of you. This room was clean when I left, and no one else was here. She looked annoyed at being caught by basic logic. Fine. If she did do it, so what? You had it coming by not being nicer to her anyway. She walked out of the kitchen, leaving me standing there. I pulled out my phone and called Dad. Left another message. Then I went to Natalie's room and knocked on her door. She opened it a crack. I know you were the one who tore up my room, I said. And before you even try to answer, I want you to know something. You can't get to my money anymore. I locked it away in a safe that you'll never open. The tantrum that followed was spectacular. She started screaming at the top of her lungs, just this wordless shrieking. I heard my mother's footsteps running toward us. What did you do to her? Mom demanded. I just told her she can't get at my money anymore because it's locked in a safe, I said, then walked back to my room to start cleaning up. The screaming continued for about 20 minutes. I put my headphones on and listened to music while I picked up clothes and reorganized my drawers. It was, honestly, the smuggest I'd ever felt cleaning my room. Everything was going exactly according to plan. But the next day when I got home from school, my room had been ransacked again. And this time, my window was broken. Glass littered my floor, and when I looked outside, I saw my safe lying in the grass below. Natalie had found it, couldn't open it, and thrown it out my second-story window in frustration. I called Dad immediately. She threw the safe out my window. The window's broken. She admitted it. You need to come home now. When both my parents got home from work that evening, we all sat in the living room. Natalie admitted to throwing the safe out the window, and she said it like she was proud of herself. Like it was some kind of achievement. My mother actually tried to side with her. Well, you shouldn't have gotten the safe in the first place. Then none of this would have happened. Dad's face went red. I got him the safe because I'm sick and tired of our daughter stealing from him. Every time she steals money from him and spends it, I have to reimburse him because you never will. This has to stop. The window had to be replaced. That cost money. But what Dad did next cost my mother and sister even more. He installed a deadbolt lock on my bedroom door. And next to the door, he mounted a small combination lockbox that contained the only key. We installed it on a Saturday when Mom and Natalie were out. When they came home and saw it, Natalie looked at the lock and immediately ran to get Mom. They both came storming up the stairs. Dad and I stood there waiting for them. My mother snapped her fingers at the lock and pointed. What the hell is that? A door lock, Dad said calmly. I know what the fuck it is. Why is it there? Because you never see fit to punish or stop our daughter from stealing from him or ransacking his room. So from now on, the lock stays. He's only 14 and this is my house. He can't have a lock on his door. No, Dad said, his voice getting that edge to it. This is our house. But last I checked, I pay most of the mortgage and the bills. You hardly pay anything. And I'm tired of you favoring our daughter so much that he keeps having to suffer for it. Then I demand you tell me the code for the lockbox at least. Dad just stared at her with this deadpan expression. I'm not doing that. Because you've shown I can't trust you anymore. My mother blew her top. She screamed something incoherent and stormed down the stairs. Natalie just stood there looking pouty, then slowly shuffled back to her room. From that day on, I locked my door every single time I left my room. It became automatic. Wake up, get ready for school, leave room, punch code into lockbox, get key, lock door, put key back, close lockbox. My mother and Natalie would watch me do it sometimes, trying to see the code. But I always used my body to block their view. They hated it. There was nothing they could do about it. What I didn't know was that Dad had done something else. Something secret. While we were installing the lock, he'd also installed a small wireless camera in my room, disguised as a smoke detector. If she tries anything again, he'd told me quietly, we'll have video proof. A few weeks later, Natalie came to my room begging for money. I need $40, she said. There's a video game I really want. Why do you keep coming to me to ask for money when you and I both know you'll never pay it back? I'll pay it back. I swear. No, you won't. You spend everything you have and then some each month. You never save anything. I will this time. I went into my room and got a piece of paper and a pen. I handwrote a simple contract. IOU, Natalie owes her brother $40, to be paid back upon receiving her next monthly allowance. To be witnessed by Robert, father. I even drew a line for her signature and one for Dad's. Always have a witness for contracts, I said, holding it out to her. She read it. Her face went through this journey, confusion, then realization, then anger. She started sniffling. Then she tore the paper in half and ran crying down the stairs. Mommy! I followed her down. She ran to our mother, sobbing. He wants me to sign a paper. He's being mean. What is this? Mom demanded, looking at me. She wanted to borrow money. I asked her to sign an IOU in front of Dad. You know, to make sure she actually pays it back this time. You little shit. Mom stood up from the couch, her arm outstretched like she was going to hit me. Then she stopped herself and pulled her arm back. Why would you do that? She just wanted to borrow a little money. Would you sign the IOU as well? I asked. To make sure she pays the money back? You little shit. I don't have to sign anything. Now just loan her the money. Not without a signed IOU. She stood up, raising her arm again, then lowering it. You're just like your father. You have to have a paper trail for everything. I hate it. I started walking back up the stairs. I'd say it's a good thing I'm just like Dad, because it's far better than being just like you. At least Dad actually does something good. What was that, you little shit? She started storming up the stairs behind me. I could hear her footsteps getting closer, faster. I got to my bedroom door and quickly punched in the code, 4-9-6-2, got the key, unlocked my door, slipped inside, and locked the deadbolt. My mother had a habit. When she was angry at me, she'd throw my door open while lunging forward with her body, ready to start yelling. It was this sweeping motion she'd done 100 times. But she'd only had the lock for a few weeks. She wasn't used to it yet. I heard her footsteps reach the door. Then I heard her try to throw it open with that same lunging motion she always used. The solid wood door didn't budge. And she slammed right into it. The thud was so loud I felt it through the floor. Then I heard her fall backward and hit the carpet. Then came these sounds of pain mixed with crying. She'd hit it hard, face first, full body weight. I waited a few seconds, then opened the door. She was sprawled on the floor, pounding her fists like a toddler having a tantrum. Her lip was already swelling. A bump was forming on her forehead. You did this to me, she wailed. You little shit. You did it to yourself, I said calmly. You are grounded. Get out of my sight. I called Dad. He groaned when I explained what happened. I'm not saying you're grounded, he said. But you're still in big trouble for goading her. Just let me deal with her when I get home. I got a stern lecture from Dad that night, plus extra chores for 2 weeks and a reduction to my allowance that month. But it was worth it. Because after that day, every time Natalie asked me for money, I'd ask her to sign an IOU. She really didn't like that. A few days later, I was sweeping grass clippings off the back patio after mowing the lawn. The broom pushed something under one of the chairs, a glossy pamphlet. I picked it up and my stomach sank. It was for a military school. One of those places they send troubled teens to straighten them out. I found it right under the chair where my mom always sat to drink her wine. I showed it to Dad as soon as he got home. He looked at it, his jaw clenching. Let me talk to your mother. I watched from the hallway as Dad confronted her in the kitchen. Honey, what's this? Mom's face went completely white when she saw the pamphlet. It's nothing. I've never seen it before. Really? Because it looks to me like you were planning on trying to send him to military school. You know I wouldn't allow that. And that's when she broke. He needs to learn some discipline. He locks his door all the time and I can't even spank him anymore because he's too big. This is the only way I have left to punish him for being a disobedient brat. Our son did nothing wrong when he stood up to you. Dad's voice was rising now. If anything, our daughter is the brat because of you and the way you spoil her and let her get away with stealing from her brother. And as far as I'm concerned, this discussion about military school is over. If you try to send him, then so help me, I'll bring the hammer down on you any way I can. Well, I guess this whole family is just going to take away what little power I have left in this house then. Stop being so dramatic. He's growing up and is his own man now with his own money. You need to accept that. Mom just stormed out of the room. The next morning before school, I saw her in the kitchen, furiously trying to stuff something deep into the trash bin. I waited for her to leave for work, then dug it out. It was an application for the military school. Filled out entirely in my mother's handwriting. It required the signatures of both parents or legal guardians. I saw my mother's signature at the bottom, her usual loopy cursive. Next to it was another signature. One that was supposed to be my dad's. My father prided himself on his signature. It was smooth, complex, with this specific flourish at the end that he'd practiced for years. The signature on this application looked like a child had tried to copy it. It was shaky, uncertain, obviously forged. She'd tried to send me away by forging my dad's signature. And when she realized how bad the forgery looked, she'd tried to hide the evidence. I kept the papers and showed Dad later that evening. He stared at them for a long time, his face unreadable. "This is bad," he finally said. "This is fraud. What are you going to do?" "I'm not sure yet. But keep this between us. I need to think." He took the papers and filed them in his home office. "Just in case," he said. The next few weeks felt almost normal. Mom avoided me. Natalie stopped asking for money after the IOU thing. But I could feel something building, like pressure before a storm. Then one afternoon, I came home from school to find a strange car in our driveway. I walked inside and saw a woman I didn't recognize sitting at our dining table with my father. She had a briefcase and a clipboard. Professional. Official looking. "This is Ms. Rodriguez," Dad said. "She's from Child Protective Services. She needs to ask you some questions." My mouth went dry. I looked through the kitchen window and saw my mother on the back patio, a wine glass in her hand even though it was only 3 in the afternoon. Ms. Rodriguez smiled at me. It wasn't a fake smile. It was kind, but serious. "Don't worry. You're not in trouble. I just need to understand what's been happening in this house." She asked me to sit down. Dad left the room to give us privacy. For the next 30 minutes, Ms. Rodriguez asked me questions. About Natalie stealing. About the locks on my door. About Mom's threats. About the door slam incident. About the military school application. "Can you show me your room?" she asked. I took her upstairs. She saw the deadbolt lock on my door. The combination lockbox. I showed her inside, the broken window that had just been replaced, the spot where the safe had sat. "I need this lock just to have basic security in my own home," I explained. "I understand," she said, making notes on her clipboard. Then Dad showed her everything. The hidden camera footage of Natalie ransacking my room and throwing the safe out the window. Video of Mom threatening me with violence, yelling while clearly intoxicated. Audio recordings of Mom trying to force me to give Natalie money. The forged military school application with the side-by-side comparison of the fake signature and Dad's real one. Ms. Rodriguez reviewed everything methodically, her expression getting more serious with each piece of evidence. Then she asked to speak with Natalie alone. I could hear my sister's voice from the dining room, getting higher and more defensive. After 20 minutes, Natalie came out crying. Ms. Rodriguez's expression was grim. "I need to speak with your mother now," she said. "Comment below and tell me, do you think I should have just given my sister the money to keep the peace, or was I right to stand my ground? Let me know what you would have done." A few days later, Ms. Rodriguez called another meeting. This time, everyone had to be there. Me, Natalie, Mom, Dad, the CPS investigator, and a family counselor named Dr. Barnes. We all sat in our living room. It felt wrong, having strangers there, but also somehow right. Like finally, someone from outside was going to see what had been happening. Ms. Rodriguez opened a folder and began reading. "My investigation has determined that while the minor is not in immediate physical danger, the household environment is toxic and dysfunctional. There is clear evidence of extreme parental favoritism, enabling of theft, threats of violence, and attempted educational fraud through forgery." My mother tried to interrupt. "This is ridiculous. I'm his mother. I have a right to discipline him." "You have a right to reasonable discipline," Ms. Rodriguez said calmly. "Threatening violence, enabling theft, and forging documents to send him away are not reasonable." She laid out the terms. Either my mother agreed to family therapy, stopped enabling Natalie's behavior, and stopped threatening me, or CPS would recommend I be removed from the home. She also noted the forged signature. "If any further fraudulent documents are created, I'm required by law to report it to law enforcement. Forgery is a crime." My mother's face went through so many emotions: shock, anger, fear, and finally, defeated acceptance. She signed the compliance agreement with a shaking hand. For 3 months, we did mandatory family therapy. Every Tuesday at 5 p.m., we'd all pile into Dr. Barnes' office and sit on her uncomfortable couch while she asked questions that made my mother squirm. Linda, can you see how giving Natalie money every time she asks while demanding your son give her his earnings creates an unfair dynamic? Yes, Mom would say through gritted teeth. I can see that. Natalie, why do you feel entitled to your brother's money? My sister would just shrug and pick at her fingernails. But it's his money that he earned. Why should he be required to share it? Silence. During this time, my mother was on her best behavior. She had to be. Ms. Rodriguez did monthly check-ins. Mom couldn't threaten me. Couldn't enable Natalie's stealing. Couldn't drink excessively where CPS might see. But I could see the resentment building in both of them. They hated this. Hated being told what to do. Hated that I'd tattled, even though it was Dad who'd called CPS. Hated that they couldn't go back to the old way of doing things. Then, during one session, Dr. Barnes asked my mother about other stresses in the marriage. And Mom broke down. I've been seeing someone else, she admitted. An old boyfriend from high school. We've been meeting up for a few months. The room went silent. Dad's face didn't change, but I saw his hands grip the armrest tighter. Dr. Barnes made notes. Mom didn't realize that confession would be documented. She didn't realize it would become evidence. The 3-month supervision period ended. Dr. Barnes recommended continued therapy, but it was no longer mandatory. My mother stopped going immediately. And within days, I saw the old patterns creeping back. Natalie asked for money. Mom gave her extra allowance. Mom shot me dirty looks when I locked my door. The force piece was crumbling. But Dad had been planning. Building his case. Waiting for the right moment. One evening after dinner, Dad called us all to the living room. He had papers in his hand. I'm filing for divorce, he said. And I'm taking our son with me. My mother's face went white. You can't do this. You can't take him away from me. I have the CPS report, Dad said calmly. I have the forged documents. I have video evidence of your favoritism and threats. If you fight me on this, I'll make sure those forgeries get reported to the police. Do you want to risk fraud charges? Mom looked like she'd been slapped. No, she whispered. Then you'll agree to my terms. The divorce went fast. Mom was so afraid of those fraud charges that she agreed to almost everything. Dad got primary custody of me. Mom kept the house but had to take Natalie full-time. Dad had minimal child support obligations. Mom got minimal alimony, barely enough to cover what the judge called Natalie's excessive and enabling allowance. Even the judge had called out Mom's favoritism. In court. On record. Moving day came on a Saturday morning. I packed my stuff into boxes, clothes, books, my safe with all my savings still inside. Dad had bought a house across town. Smaller than our old place, but it was ours. Clean. Peaceful. As I was loading the last box into Dad's car, I saw Natalie standing in the doorway. She stuck her tongue out at me, this smug little gesture. Mommy told me I'm a princess and the more deserving sibling, she said. That's why you're leaving the house. I just shook my head. Think what you want, Natalie. I don't care anymore. I got in the car and we drove away. I didn't look back. For the first time in years, I felt free. At Dad's new house, he showed me to my room. No locks needed, he said. You're safe here. The room was empty, waiting for me to make it mine. I set up my bed, arranged my desk, put my safe in the closet, not hidden this time, just sitting there openly because I didn't need to hide it anymore. I hung up my clothes. Put my books on the shelf. That night, we ordered pizza and sat on the couch watching TV. It was quiet. Peaceful. No tension. No waiting for the next explosion. Just calm. Natalie visited Dad's house once a week at first, as required by the custody agreement. She'd come over on Saturday afternoons. We barely spoke. She'd sit in the living room with her arms crossed, radiating resentment. After a few months, the visits became less frequent. Then they stopped altogether. I didn't care. I had my freedom. My money was safe. And I had a parent who actually treated me fairly. Years passed. I heard through relatives that Mom and Natalie were still living in the old house. Natalie was still spending money like water, except now it was Mom's money. And Mom was complaining about money problems. I had no sympathy. I kept my $2,000 in savings and added to it. Used it wisely. Eventually bought my first car with cash I'd saved. Went to college. Got a job. Learned the value of hard work and documentation because I'd had to fight for every dollar I earned. Natalie reached out once when she was 19. A text message, hey, I know we haven't talked in a while. Could you loan me some money? I'm in a bind. I typed back one word, no. She never contacted me again. My mother tried to reconnect years later, sent me a long letter apologizing for favoring Natalie, for threatening me, for trying to send me away. She wanted to rebuild our relationship. I read the letter once. Then I filed it away and never responded. Too little, too late. I learned something important from all of this. My father taught me that documentation is power. Evidence is everything. That standing up for yourself isn't optional, it's necessary. That when people show you who they are, you should believe them. At 14, I stood up to my thieving sister and my enabling mother. I documented everything in my ledger. I called my father for backup. I got a safe, then a lock. I found forged documents. I cooperated with CPS. I went through family therapy. And eventually, I got out. It took hidden cameras, forged military school applications, a CPS investigation, and 3 months of mandatory therapy, but I won. My sister never learned. My mother never changed. But I learned the most important lesson of all: when people show you who they are, believe them the first time. And never, ever stop fighting for what's yours. So that's my story. If you made it this far, hit that like button and subscribe for more stories. Drop a comment and let me know, do you think involving CPS was too far, or was it justified? Thanks you staying this far. See you in next one.